It's Bigfoot Collectors Club with Bryce and Michael. I know a ghost story or two. Let's do this.
Yeah.
There's always that awkward moment in this
I
song where it's
know.
like, I should dance to the intro so that
People know that we're
people know
supposed
that
to have
it's-
fun.
Yeah, have a little fun.
Or be worried about
Right.
it a little bit.
Right, if you like don't do anything, you just it's
I know
just-
it does throw off
requires
first time
something.
guests who are like, they're like, oh, this song sounds pretty good, and then
Okay.
just like a weird man's voice comes in.
Right.
Oh boy, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Bigfoot Collectors Club, the show where we talk to amazing guests about their personal paranormal history and share stories of high strangeness. I'm your host, Michael McMillan. With me always is your other host,
Bryce Johnson.
and our super producer,
Riley Bray.
Today's guest is an actor, comedian that I've worked with on a short film called The Arrival. He's been in so many frickin' shows and movies you guys have probably heard of, like little things like Saturday Night Live, Ghostbusters, Guest Book, Adam Ruins Everything, Foursome, College Humor. I mean, this guy's done it, seen it. He's been there and back, and he's going to tell us all about it. His life this is now an actor's podcast. Forget ghost stories. Let's just talk about what's it like being in Hollywood. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, John Milheiser.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Nice. So good to see everyone.
Famously brought up in the past as last week's guest's former roommate, Marcy Jarreau's former roommate.
Oh yeah.
Yes, Marcy and I go way back.
You were talking shit about you, bro.
Yeah, she was.
Probably. That sounds
Yeah,
like
yeah,
Marcy.
yeah.
Yeah.
She said that when she was on the show, and look, we want to make it about you, but she did say that you guys once lived in a haunted apartment together.
Sure, on Beechwood. Yeah, when I was moving to LA, she had a room opening up in her apartment, and I didn't have to look for an apartment at all. I just moved right in. And she warned me that she has had some experiences with the paranormal in that apartment. I believe her experience was that the ghost would sit on her or like hold her down.
Yeah, like in succubus or an incubus.
Right.
That's like a popular phenomenon that happens.
Yeah.
It's probably just sleep paralysis, but
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm all about like ghosts and believing in them, but I want to be like critical and be like, well, was it a ghost or was it sleep paralysis? So I think it was that. So I always like kept an eye out in that apartment. She moved out. My friend Nicole Byer moved in, and I didn't really see anything or nothing really happened. Nicole says she saw a guy in a white suit.
whoa.
Standing
Colonel
in the living room.
Sanders?
I was just gonna say.
Yeah, like a Colonel Sanders type. But I never saw him, and I want to believe her, but I'm like, I don't know, or maybe I don't know. I don't know what it was.
Was that sleep paralysis, John?
It's probably sleep
It
paralysis.
doesn't fit the bill.
Yeah, Sleep Paralysis Collectors Club doesn't have the same ring to it, so let's err on the side of ghosts. So wait, so you said we ask our guests what's your personal paranormal history? What is your personal? I mean, let me ask that question. What is it? What
Well-
is your personal paranormal history?
Let's do it.
In that apartment, what we did hear was clapping. Like if we were in my bedroom, we'd hear clapping in the living room. We'd go out there, and nobody was there.
Like applause or just
Or the clap on.
Like that.
Ooh. 3
weird?
claps.
And then one time we were at the dining room table, and in the kitchen, a glass flew off the counter.
Oh, that's
What?
fun.
So that was, we were like, whoa.
Did it shatter?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Hmm.
Did you see it happen or just
Saw
hear
it happen.
Oh, really?
Okay. I've always wanted to talk to somebody who's seen like poltergeist activity.
And it wasn't like on a slant or anything.
Nope.
Kind of slid
Flat
off.
clowner. Flat clowner.
A flat clowner was in there.
Flat counter. Nicole Salt too.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa.
What'd you make of that right after it happened?
I was like, that's weird. That's the weirdest thing.
How
Yeah.
far did it travel?
Not far. It just went like knocked a foot away from the counter.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's messed up.
I wonder if you had a ghost cat. You know how cats bat things off countertops?
Yeah,
That's their game.
sure.
I don't know what I would do if I saw, because I've told this story before that I was in an apartment that I was subletting in Upper East Side, New York, and she had a giant Folgers can full of pennies that was sitting on the counter that I walked through the room, and a second later that thing fell on the floor and spilled everywhere.
It's heavy.
Yeah, I mean, something moved it. So but I didn't see it happen. I can't. That would for sure. I'd be in the Bryce Club. Bryce is always like, pack up and move when this stuff happens.
Get the fuck out.
I would have gotten out of there.
You ever see those like videos of like there was that one in the school. It was like black and white from an actual mounted camera where the lockers just fly open and a couple things fly out. It's like that, right?
Yeah,
it's fucking crazy.
I think that one unfortunately is coming out as a hoax. I think unfortunately.
How do you know which one I'm talking about?
Because I remember it went around. It was a very popular one. Does that stuff scare you, John?
It doesn't scare me.
Yeah, you seem honestly, you seem unfazed.
I welcome it, and I would want to see them. I want to see a ghost. I want to communicate. They don't scare me. It's just like, I don't think like Marcy, I believe, was saying that they can kill you from that show she was watching. But I don't believe that they can kill you. And I believe it's just like we can coexist in the apartment together. I mean, it was a nice apartment. I wouldn't leave either. But
you did.
I did.
You did.
But I gave it to a friend. All right. So I still get to visit it.
Do you hear any encounter stories from them?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe the ghost moved on when you moved on.
Well, they got new cabinets and like stuff, new floor.
That's what the ghost wanted all along.
They say that houses have.
Here is dog.
They say
I
that
can move on.
Finally. They say that the most paranormal activity occurs in a house when it's undergoing renovations and like walls are getting knocked down and stuff's getting like redone, because it's almost as if the house itself is, being shook apart, and that's kind of when the ghosts heighten, whatever the spirit of the home is like haunting the home.
Chip and Joanna have ever
right?
From,
I was always fascinated by
so that's a show. We need to do that show. A house, a combination paranormal ghost hunter show and house flipping show. Come on, boom!
Right.
We just sold it. We just sold it.
I was going to say I was always fascinated by there's a ranch in Utah called Skinwalker Ranch, and it has a variety of different type of paranormal happenings. But the previous owners, they had left in the lease to the new owner that they were selling it to, not to dig up anything on the property without alerting them first, which makes me wonder, like if they were going to dig up something, like it might affect the new owners wherever they moved. You know what I mean? Otherwise, why would they care? So it's like as if it like awoken something, like you're saying, during a renovation, and perhaps it obviously could travel, over space and time. I mean, otherwise, why would they give a shit? But I always found that like a fascinating kind of little tidbit into that Skinwalker Ranch thing.
Did they ever dig anything up?
Yeah, they did dig. They dug lots of stuff. I mean, that was
they just did.
Yeah.
You tell the new owners not to dig. That's the first thing they do is go out and buy a shovel.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with this story, the first thing that happens is this new family brings their property on the ranch as they see this huge wolf come out from the tree line. And it seems docile enough because it's almost like sauntering up to the family. It's supposed to be like
dire wolf size.
Yeah, and they said almost to their shoulder height was the size of this wolf, and so much so that they reached out and they pet it, the father. And it wasn't then until he was a farmer, and he had prized cattle, and he had these calves in this pen, and then it immediately goes for the snout of one of these calves. And I'm going to speed up this story. But anyway, so they're like, oh, shit. So he grabs his .357 Magnum and he fires into this wolf and it didn't even affect it. And so much so that they had to like go get his rifle out of his 30-06 or something out of his truck bed. And that's when he fired again, multiple shots into this thing, and where he saw some fluff kind of like fly off. And then it kind of just sauntered nonchalantly back into the woods. But that started the paranormal happenings that took place on this ranch, so much so that a guy named Robert Bigelow, he's a space privateer. He got all his billions through the hotel business in Las Vegas. He ended up buying the property and installing his own scientific team called NIDS. I just love watching our guests
interest slowly dwindle and then concern rise.
Like,
for
keep having questions. What
Yeah.
was his job? The space what?
Oh, he's a privateer. So yeah, he's into the space industry. He's one like Elon Musk. His name is Robert Bigelow. In fact, he has it's an expandable pod that is on the International Space Station. It's an inflatable pod. God.
Bryce, it's time for your meds.
Anyway, so yeah, moving on.
And you know a lot about guns.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, that sounds like a gun.
That sounds like a big gun.
So, John, growing up, what did you have any interest in this stuff? Did you have any encounters of your own before you lived in this apartment? Be it UFOs or weird phenomenon, you know?
Well, growing up in New Jersey, like
You saw the Jersey Devil?
no,
Did you hear about the Jersey Devil? Was that something that was on your radar?
no, I don't think so.
Have you ever heard of the Jersey Devil?
I've heard of the Jersey
Okay,
Devil,
okay.
but yeah, nobody really talked about it. But
That's disappointing.
you know, you in Jersey, you would go to diners, you go over to a friend's house to drink if the parents weren't home, or you would get in the car and go up into the mountains. They weren't like real mountains, but like Catskills.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then it was like known, like it was passed down from generation to generation at school to be like, oh, you got to go to this like little castle. So you go down like a wooded road, and then you just see like a dirt driveway with like no mailbox. Like that's it. And you turn right and you go into it, and it's through the woods, and then you see like a little castle, like what's that called?
Like a tower?
A tower, and then like a house attached to that tower. And you park the car, and then you're like, oh God, here it is. It's like an abandoned little castle house. And you walk in. It's super scary, especially the first time. Like, I think I sat in the car the first time and didn't get out.
This sounds awesome.
So you walk into the house, all the doors are gone. And I think it was like taken over by like satanic people.
Yeah, there was a
that
satanic
sounds
cult
right, yeah.
there in the 80s.
We want this property for
Yeah.
ourselves.
So you go in there. I remember there was prosthetic limbs
What?
on the floor,
That's creepy.
and then there was a refrigerator. And you open the fridge, and there was like jars of hair.
No.
Yeah.
What?
Hmm.
That sounds ritualistic.
Get out of there.
But I didn't
What are
experience
you
any ghosts. But
doing?
like you just like, and then some people would like break a window or trash a little, and like, let's get out of here.
Right.
But yeah, if you're just
First,
bored,
let's smoke some weed in here. That's what I would have done.
The fridge full of hair jars? No, thank you.
Yeah.
I would not want to.
it's almost like somebody put it there to be creepy.
Right.
We
Like a
gotta
little
keep this place up.
performance RP. That's okay. Then I'm okay with it. If someone's like, you know
Right.
what, I'm going to spruce this up for the kids a little bit. That is
I
the
don't know. That
Catskills.
seems
Are pretty. I mean, they're like notoriously. There's so much folklore about how haunted they are and how much UFO activity actually happens there. So, I like that you were running around there as a teenager,
And it was pitch black. Like there was no
Yeah.
lights, so you only had your headlights. But then it's just like, yeah, your headlights like illuminate the place, and you're like, oh my God, like.
That's a little.
I don't know. Did you guys ever see that documentary Cropsy about the Staten Island, like old? I think it was like an old insane asylum out on Staten Island. There was like a kid killer out there that they called Cropsy, and like they thought there was like a ghost that was out in this old abandoned building.
Is it in Long Island or Staten Island?
I thought it was Staten Island, but it might be Long Island. It might be.
When I was in a fraternity, they brought us to like a big field, and there was like a huge abandoned mental or what you just said, like
like an
huge
old
building.
asylum
Yeah,
or
old
facility.
asylum.
And was the why were you going to all these abandoned buildings with your friends?
They did like some pledging thing there.
What
where we
did you
had
have? Can you tell us what you had to do?
I don't remember. Probably had to say the like founding fathers backwards, or I don't know.
Oh,
some
okay.
stuff.
Kill a couple animals, sacrifice
Eat a
few
frog.
things.
Eat a live frog.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm not into these abandoned I'm not into that
And,
abandoned
like,
building bullshit.
I grew up in Montgomery, New Jersey, which
Okay.
is
So is
like
that
near Princeton.
Yeah. Okay.
And there was a lot of abandoned buildings. There was also was it mental institution? Like it was like 6 buildings next to each other, and it was behind the school. and they just recently, like in the past 10 years, renovated it, and now it's like a middle school. But forever,
God.
it was just empty buildings of that. It was a mental institution.
Well, then now it still kind of is because it's a middle school. It's like, I mean,
Touche.
man, that's got to be, that is a haunted fucking school. You know that's haunted.
Yeah.
Everyone says their middle school's haunted. Our middle school is supposedly haunted.
Yours wasn't a prior mental asylum, though.
No, but there was rumor that there was an old dead janitor buried in the courtyard under a hill.
That's awesome. He'd want to be buried there. Bury me where I worked.
Yeah.
I loved this place.
I don't think there's any truth behind that rumor. So you, even then, I mean, going into Bandit, like the old castle was kind of scary, but did you grow up, you say you're not scared of the paranormal. Was there ever a time when you were like, horror movies, all this stuff, was there anything that, like, what did scare you as a kid? Like, what captured your imagination?
Well, I would have night terrors.
Join the club.
Like full on awake, screaming, but like sleepwalking.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then I would wake up the next morning and be like, did I have a nightmare last night? They're like, yeah, John, you were going crazy.
Everyone in the
My mom
house.
pinpointed, she's like, I think anytime you have a nightmare, it's always because you have cereal right before you go to bed. So it's like sugar.
Whoa.
So we stopped
interesting.
doing like cereal before bed.
Right.
But the common thread in all my nightmares, because I kind of remember them, is Legend with Tim Curry as the devil guy.
Devil, yeah.
Yeah.
He would be in every nightmare of mine, and like he'd be cranking something that would squish me further and further.
Some death device.
Yeah, death device. And so he was, a common character in all my nightmares.
Wow.
And one time my mom was holding me down, and I remember the nightmare, like the visions of my nightmare and what was happening around me in my bedroom. And I remember like my sister in the doorway. It was like in the middle of the night. She's like, John. And my mom was holding me down. And I was small, probably 8 years old. I threw my mom across the bed
What?
Weird.
with like strength. I was
You
just
had
like,
madman strength.
Yeah.
Did she look like the devil when she was holding you down? Would it manifest like,
I don't
would
remember
you
that part.
hallucinate things in your room while you were having these instances, or was it always the transition from waking up from the nightmares?
Say that again?
Would you see, so like I've had situations where I would get night terrors, but I'd be like, I would wake up and see something in the room that would instantly vanish, but then that would scare me. So when you were having these, episode, I don't want to call it an episode, but when you were having your night terrors, was it always the result of a bad dream you're waking up screaming, or would you actually see things in the room that maybe weren't there?
I think it was a dream, and then I would wake up from the dream and be having like a nightmare.
Right.
Like the experience of the dream would freak me out, and I'd be screaming. And
you know what you have to do is before you go to bed tonight, eat a big bowl of Fruity Pebbles, and then you find that devil and you fucking kill him in your dream. You gotta close the circle.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. My son wakes up with night terrors every now and then, and it's like you can't like get him out of it. It's really pretty crazy. It's scary for the parents too. And you know what? We feed him. He wants cereal before bed sometimes. I wonder if that has anything to do with it.
Yeah, no doctors said, "Oh, it's the cereal," but my mom was like, "I think it's the cereal." And then once I stopped eating the cereal, I stopped having the nightmares.
I bet you there's a connection.
What kind of cereal was it? Nightmare Flicks?
It was. I ate a lot of Life
Ooh.
because that has sugar.
Yeah.
Rarely Captain Crunch, but mostly Rice Krispies, and then I put sugar on it.
That'll do it every time.
I love Life cereal, and I would eat it well into my 20s as a snack, but instead of night terrors, it gave me raging IBS, and I started to realize that there was a connection between Life cereal and my constipation, and as soon as I stopped doing that, my IBS got a lot better.
Was it the milk?
Well, by that point, I wasn't even drinking milk. It was probably soy milk at that point, or almond milk or something, but yeah.
I used to chug milk like
Oh,
water.
me too. Growing up as a kid.
Like take the gallon and just drink right out of the gallon. Like I never drank water. I was just always drinking milk.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I just picture you on the treadmill, just like, oh,
Sports bottle of milk.
Yeah, we definitely grew up in a like 3 glass of milk a day home, and I can't do it because I have like it took
can't
me for
drink milk at all anymore.
it gives me such terrible sinus issues too. Like I think we've got an allergy that no one in the family is willing to admit in our immediate family. But yeah, I don't do milk. I don't do it anymore.
It just doesn't seem right. Like we're the only species on Earth that's still drinking.
Yeah, why are we drinking like the baby,
especially from another animal?
The baby food of another animal. It's not
Riley's
necessary.
shaking his head. No,
because the milk farmers, if that's what they're called, they pushed it on us. They like
big milk,
tricked us.
man.
They're like, "Oh, you got to have milk."
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
It's like Madison Avenue and those big farms.
Meat and dairy business. It's big.
That's because they got a lot of it. They got to get rid of it. They got to sell it. It's just like Listerine was originally created as a something to strip or treat aluminum, and then it didn't work for that. But they were like,
it was
what?
a floor cleaner or something,
yeah,
wasn't it?
they were
It was
like, well, they tried a couple different things, and it was as an antiseptic, like floor cleaner, aluminum stripper, and then they were like, well, we made this. What are we gonna do?
Get that out of your mouth.
Are we not supposed to have Listerine now?
Oh, it's a bullshit product. It was it's never been like a thing. It's just it's literally like a chemical that they invented in a lab for it to be like to be an industrial chemical wasn't strong enough, didn't work, and then they finally are like, well, this is something. What should we do with it? I think they literally added mint, and then they sold it as mouthwash. So pretty wild.
Did you hear that?
Sick world.
Dentists have been scamming us.
Oh, do tell.
Like you don't need to go to the dentist twice a year. You like cavities can heal themselves. And like it's just like, oh, you need to have this root canal. Maybe you don't. You go get a second opinion. Like it's just they've made it seem like you need to go to the dentist all the time
on a regular.
Like, yeah.
Well, we're gonna add dentists to our enemy list just under Sean Penn. That's the new BCC enemy list. I have to go to the dentist this week. I haven't been in well over a year, and my teeth are pretty good. But they do help get the plaque, off your teeth. You want to?
I have dentist horror stories. I used to have. Well, as I'm told, I have soft enamel and deep grooves, but I used to get cavities all the time.
That's not a radio DJ.
That's like you.
Bryce Johnson with the soft enamels and deep grooves.
That's next up on the track.
That's yours and Riley's act,
Totally.
like musical act.
But I remember, I never had
your deep grooves.
I
too.
never had a perfect checkup like when I was young, so I fucking hated the dentist. Not only that, is my dentist was a nightmare. Like, so he would. I remember one time he'd be like, "Hey, do you want to hold a mirror and see what I'm doing?" And I was like, "No." And he kind of puts it in my hand, and I couldn't turn it away. And all I remember seeing is just like blood and the drill, and like, and I just like watching the whole thing go down.
And he's in full clown makeup.
No. And he's like, yeah, right. And I was like, fucking dentist.
There was one dentist I went to in Queens. I had to go back like twice because I can't remember if I guess it was cavities, but he put the mouth thing in me and was working on me, but he would take breaks and just talk about his son.
Oh God.
Like for an hour, just sit there and be like, so my son wants a car, but he already crashed my car. And I'm like, dude, I have to go to work. Just,
right.
I don't care. And you can't. And I couldn't say anything. I was like,
You're a good listener.
When I was a kid, the dental hygienist that my mom, like my dentist and my mom took us to when we were kids, me and my sister, there was this one dental hygienist. She was probably like 75 and had terrible emphysema. And while she was cleaning your teeth, she would just look over and go, in your face. And I remember like it was a joke between me and we were little kids, but I was like, I hope I don't get her, because then it would get to the point that I was uncomfortable, then I would start laughing.
Right.
So my mom was a dental hygienist.
Oh no.
And when we were kids, she would insist on doing our cleanings, and it was the only time a year that she would be a practicing dental hygienist because she no longer
she didn't practice anymore?
No, but she did. One day a year, when it was cleaning our teeth.
Oh, man.
So she was not well practiced. And it was the worst.
I love it. Like some kids, like moms cut their hair. You got a home dentist.
Yeah, well, because we go to my uncle, who is a dentist, and then my mom would do the cleaning. Cause she's like, it's good practice.
Is your dad an oral surgeon? No,
he's a neurosurgeon.
Neurosurgeon, that's right.
Yeah.
Big difference.
But anyways, my mom listens to the show. You did a great job, Mom.
Wow.
Thanks for the
Oh
teeth
my
cleaners.
gosh.
She also cut my hair, so we'll just.
Is that why you never cut it anymore?
That is why. Yeah.
There you go.
That's why your teeth are all black.
I also don't go to the dentist anymore.
Anyway.
I get paranoid. That's the great dentist lie of the 20th century has definitely worked on me.
All right,
Well, I
so
do
big
remember when I
dental, big
finally
milk.
got laughing gas, and it was like a savior because
That's so great.
as soon as that drill turned on, it was so great. As soon as that drill turned on, I imagined like I was on an F-14 Tomcat from Top Gun, and like the engines roared, and it was like, and I was like, da, 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 da. And I was like, this cleaning's going all right, you know. It was fucking awesome.
You should have been an Air Force pilot. Why weren't you?
dude, that'd
All
be
signs in your life
Lieutenant
point.
Johnson.
You'd be just like shooting down UAPs,
That'd be dope.
calling in Tic Tacs.
Fuck yeah, I could
Dude.
still do it.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Do you believe in UFOs?
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah?
Good
It's
for you.
crazy to think that there's like not an insect on another planet or something. That
Right.
counts as a UFO.
Well,
well,
an alien.
Alien, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, do you think the little insect? What if the little insects are getting in tiny ships and coming? We would never know.
That'd
What
be
if
adorable.
insects are tiny little UFOs with tiny little people inside of them?
Why
and
not,
we just think
dude?
they're flies.
A lot of UFO experiencers.
Because I know science has never studied a fly
Yeah, I was like,
before.
I
Well,
was
isn't
gonna
it
jump in
weird
there. I
when
was like,
it is weird when you hit a fly, it doesn't phase it at all. It's like it's so much smaller than me.
Either that or
Yeah.
you just have no upper body strength.
But when you hit a fly,
Yeah.
like it
No,
should
yeah,
like
yeah.
explode or it should be knocked out.
Right.
But it's just like it continues
If it
flying.
exploded,
Yeah.
the
that'd
idea
be
of
so
tiny
awesome.
explosions.
That would be great.
No, yeah, you're right. Well, they experience time different too, right? Because they're able to like see your hand in slow motion, and that's why they're always able to dodge it or something. Right?
Yeah, they're like little Marvel superheroes.
yeah, right. I don't know the science.
But
behind
what if
that,
what if bug consciousness is some sort of type of extraterrestrial consciousness
Dude, why
from
not?
another dimension that is just like scouting out, you know,
Yeah,
what's going on over here? Why not?
you know, these UFO experiencers.
Probably
there's
a lot
whole,
of
there's a whole
reasons.
section of aliens they call the bugs, and a lot of them are like praying mantises. And you know, there was a video on the dodo the other day. Have you ever seen the dodo? It's like
Yeah.
It's
it
a
pops
great
up.
it's an Instagram site where they always do like cute animal stories. But this dude found a praying mantis on his like tire. He picked it up and he was like, I didn't want to run it over. So, and the praying mantis just stayed with him all day long. Like, and it would like, and it hung out with the dude. Like, you know, he put it in his hair and it was like brushing his teeth with it. And the man, he fed it like little orange slice, little water. It's like a little fucking pet. And it just begs the question, like, I wonder how far that intelligence goes. I mean, because we often know, you know, we look in the eyes of a dog and we're like, yeah, there's something there. There's, you know, it experiences emotions and feelings, and there's probably a soul behind that. But then when we get down onto a smaller scale, you're like, well, what about a fly or a bee or a praying mantis?
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, I think we make that distinction. We're like, nah, probably not them. But
It's
I've
just a
often wondered to be like, yeah, why not? You know?
Dude, 2016 Royals had a praying mantis called Rally that they found in their dugout when they were making a huge comeback.
Really?
And then they would take it on tour with them
Really?
to different stadiums, and he'd hang out. Yeah, he lived for like a whole month with the team.
That's
and then
crazy.
one of them died, and then a second one showed up, and they took him around too.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And while all that was happening, a praying mantis was living on my front porch, and he lived there for like a week, and then he took off. I don't know where he went to.
You know, when you think of UFO experiencer contacts, it's really the only bug there is, right? Is the mantid? They call it the mantids, you know, and it's
I think there's like tarantids too. There are ones that kind
some
of look like
spider
spidery.
ones. Interesting, but those praying mantis ones are the crazy.
Yeah, I don't know about that stuff. I don't know.
Have you guys seen UFOs?
I have. I've seen things I can't explain that they're like white spherical kind of glowing things, and they'll move in one direction, sort of stop and move back. And so it's not a satellite, it's not a star. It was in the daytime, And I'd seen him multiple times. I even have pictures of him, photos. I took some video.
You took a video of that orange orb.
There's something I saw on Halloween night. My family saw it. It was this orange spherical orb, like, and I was just
on
like,
someo's front porch.
It was just a weird
It
trick
had
or treating.
eyes and a mouth.
No, it didn't. No,
And there's candy inside.
it was crazy. But I took video of that. I actually have phone video of that. My whole family saw it. It was just sort of like lazily like floating in the sky, only like 40 feet above us and just in front of us. And it was like I could not fucking make out what it was. It was very eerie. And even with the white spherical things, you always have this sense that they know you're watching, that like they, you know what I mean? There's like an intelligent control behind it, and there's this sense that like it is observing you, observing it. I can't explain it. It's very strange.
Do you guys ever, or have you ever thought like, oh, Trump's president, he's gonna blurt out that there are UFOs?
No, because I don't
he's
think
an idiot.
he would, but they're not telling him.
Oh, they're not.
They're not telling him.
Okay.
I think most presidents don't know because they're temporary. Unless there was a need to know, like unless like a UFO landed on the White House lawn, or they were like shooting down planes, and there was some sort of like thing, like unless it was like Independence Day. I don't think the presidents know. I think the military keeps whatever knowledge they have of that under lock and key. The Pentagon probably, it's just like a small part of the Pentagon that knows some of this stuff, because the presidents are only in power for 4 to 8 years. I don't think they tell them, and I think if they go, I mean, there's the argument that they can't have access because they have so much access to top secret stuff, but I can't even imagine. Trump can't imagine life outside of his own brain. I can't imagine him at all being interested in the idea that there might be life on other planets at all, period, anyway.
Well, and what's to report? We already explained. There was a new article that just came out in the Washington Post and other sources that the Navy is now the angry Navy pilots wanted want to be able to report their UFO sightings, which the Washington Post reported or more than 2 a month, which is like, there's an uptick in taking place since 2014. But it really is like, and we know the government is studying them, because the New York Times came out with an article that there's a program called ATIP. A couple years old now, that the government's spending $22 million, investigating this stuff. But if you really think about it, I mean, the government, it's not like they have much to report to the president. It's just like, hey, we've got another sighting on gun camera of this thing that was like flying around, evading our, jets and stuff. I've always been under the impression, what's to really do about it? There's not much they can.
Well, I think that's the whole reason why they don't admit it, because there's no way of. They don't know what the thing is. They don't know how to protect.
They don't know where it comes from.
They don't know how to protect us from it. So they don't want to admit that there might be something out there that they can't protect citizens from. That would make them irrelevant. Their whole point of the military is to protect us. So,
but the pilots are saying that they're seeing more.
Oh
and more
yeah,
UFOs.
more and more. Yeah, and they're getting real big. Like now, it's coming out. There was in April. There was April 24th. There was because this will air in a few weeks, but there was a whole story that we covered last week about in the Washington Post and Politico about naval officers. They're like, we need to start being able to report these without being stigmatized. And they're seeing stuff up there multiple times a month. They say the Navy
at least
encounters stuff that they don't understand.
It's a strange phenomenon, and they don't move like normal craft. They don't have exhaust, or they don't, and they're able to evade, our fastest jets, and they show up on radar, so they're getting multiple verification sources, from the ground, from the air, and nobody really has an idea what these things are, why they're here. What they represent, or if there's anyone flying them, or it's a strange phenomenon. It goes back hundreds of years, if not thousands. And so, but there seems to be
think
this,
about that while you eat your life cereal tonight, John.
Yeah, it's a strange thing.
What was that town it was in Arizona where the spaceship?
Oh, you mean Roswell, New Mexico, or Phoenix Arizona?
Lights.
The Phoenix Lights.
Lights, yeah.
That was, they'd never explained that.
No. They said it was military flares,
witnesses.
But even the state governor later came out and said, I saw a huge craft fly over the horizon.
Yeah, that's
Some
right.
people reported a craft as large as a mile wide. a mile long.
Yeah, and it wasn't just one craft. It was, as we would later learn, we did a whole episode on the Phoenix Lights, but it was multiple craft. I think some witnesses called them like a parade of like,
Giant boomerangs.
Giant boomerang-shaped crafts. What I found interesting about the Phoenix Lights story, which as I was researching, it was not just that these things were like flying over and that people could, they would blot out the stars. These, and they were really just kind of going over about 100 feet over people's houses. So it's not like it was like way off in the distance. People would be out in their front yard, and there's this thing. What I found most interesting about that, I guess, case that you could call it is that people kind of, when they were witnessing it, they would kind of like go off into some sort of, I don't want to call it a daze, but they like a lackadaisical kind of like response to it. Almost
That's just
like
another way of saying daze.
Yeah, right. But
it literally has the word daze in it.
They weren't freaking out and screaming, and a lot of the witnesses said it had some sort of kind of profound effect on their consciousness as it flew over. Like they remember not equating it to sort of a spiritual reverie, but kind of. Yeah, but kind of. They couldn't put their finger on like
it was a paranormal.
It was a
event.
happening. It was it was almost associated with like this feeling that it left them with. You know what I mean? Of a profound sense of like a deeper mystery of what was out there, and strange, very strange.
If I saw a black giant boomerang flying over my house, I'd probably feel the same way.
Yeah, right. But I guess it was like you said. No, it was minus the panic and minus just like it was seemed
sense
to be
of calm.
They would that's
it's almost as if these craft or whatever they are emit sort of a like calming, like subliminal calming, like Wi-Fi signal to be like, don't freak out, we'll be fine. You're just passing through here.
Well, that was another thing too, is like a lot of the witnesses too, they felt sort of like, I guess you could call it mind speak or mental speak, like, messages of peace and kind of like, don't freak out. Aww, like,
so nice.
That is very considerate of those aliens.
Yeah.
These aliens are nice. They haven't done anything to us. They're just like checking.
Nope. I mean, not nothing we can see. There's some dark corners of the internet that'll tell you otherwise, but we're not one of those. Okay, we have a game that we like to play with all of our guests. It's rapid fire. It's called Bullshit or Believe It. So I'm going to go down a list. If you believe in it, you say believe it. If you doubt it or don't buy it, you say bullshit. If you're somewhere in between, just, use some inflection the best you can.
Okay.
And we'll come back if there's anything we want to circle back to. On your mark, get set, ghosts.
Believe it.
UFOs.
Believe it.
Bigfoot.
Bullshit.
Angels.
Bullshit.
Gnomes.
Bullshit.
Fairies.
Bullshit.
Unicorns.
Bullshit.
Loch Ness Monster.
Believe it.
Little gray. You're doing really good at this game so far. Little gray aliens.
Believe it.
Dogman.
Dogman. Bullshit.
Parallel universes.
I'm gonna believe it.
Shapeshifters.
Believe it.
Mermaids.
Bullshit.
Heaven.
Believe it. There's some. I don't know. It's
okay, we'll put a star next to that one. Come back. Hell.
Believe it.
Dragons.
Bullshit.
Yeti.
Believe it. Wait, what's a Yeti? That's
the abominable snowman. It's like a snow Bigfoot in the Himalayas.
Bullshit.
Okay. Elves.
You should have left that alone, Michael.
Bullshit.
ESP.
Believe it.
Chupacabra.
Chupacabra. Is that like a bullshit?
Demons.
Believe it.
Atlantis.
Believe it.
Life on other planets.
Believe it.
World peace.
Oh, believe.
Peace in the multiverse.
Believe it.
Cool, great, good job. Well done. Okay.
I was just thinking if like you've never heard of Dogman and someone was like Dogman, you're like, what the
bullshit?
fuck is that?
Bullshit.
And then you follow
Penguin horse.
Catwoman.
Yeah.
Penguin horse.
Batman. The Dogman stuff is pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
I was a doubter myself until I read the works of Linda S. Godfrey. But I want to talk about a couple things on your list that popped up. Bigfoot, you're like, bullshit. No Bigfoot?
You know what? Maybe there was a time where a really like big, hairy mountain man that had all these problems with him lived, and then people saw him, and then he died. And
I like just the general umbrella of all these problems with.
I think at one point in time he maybe there was a man that existed, but it's not like an ongoing, like Bigfoot has been living for.
Before the vernacular of Bigfoot sort of came out, that's how usually it was reported in
wild
newspapers and stuff, and it was a wild man in the woods.
What would you think if, like, maybe what we're calling Bigfoot are just a race of a very dwindling population of a bipedal, like primate, like a type of somewhere in between a gorilla or a Gigantopithecus. It's a long ago extinct, not ancestor because we didn't descend directly from him. But, what if it, I think Cliff Barrickman said on that recent interview that we just that we posted a couple weeks ago that there might be up to like maybe around 75 spread across North America. So it's been attributed as like one thing, but I don't know. What if a case could be made for that better than what I'm arguing? Would you,
I think that made me believe it.
Okay, cool, great, done. My work here
Great.
is done.
Nice work.
All right,
Wow.
Little Gray Aliens. You were like, yeah, sure, definitely. Loch Ness Monster. You kind of were into.
Yeah,
cool. Why Loch Ness Monster? A lot of people say bullshit on that one.
He's in a lake, right?
Yeah.
There's like, we don't know what's down there. There's like a deep dark cave. Maybe he was like dormant for a very long time. And I think
Godzilla rules. I like that.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. Okay,
Sure.
cool. You said demons believe. You were very.
I love the paranormal movies.
All right.
I love
Paranormal
them.
Activity.
Yeah, I love
it.
And I do think I don't have like a story personally about demons, but I do.
But there's malevolent spirits in the
Yeah.
world.
Did you grow up religious in a religious household at all?
We went to church. Like my mom and dad. My mom's Presbyterian. My dad's Catholic.
That's the same here.
So my sister and brother were Catholic, and then my sister and me were Presbyterian.
Oh, weird.
Like, how do you do this, honey?
My
Well,
dad-
let's split the kids.
My
That's exactly what they
my
did.
dad just didn't go to church. He was pretty lapsed Catholic, so like we had to go to church with my mom, and then we bailed as soon as possible.
Right. So we would go to the Presbyterian church one week and then the Catholic church the next week. And then when they would go up at the Catholic church for communion, my sister and I would
Hang back. Yeah.
That's wild. That's a trip.
Wow. Did your dad go? So he attended church as well? Like, okay.
Like my mom was in the choir.
My mom was too. That's really funny.
And now she's doing bells.
Are you guys brothers?
We might be brothers. This explains a lot.
My room was down the hall.
minute.
Mine was too.
Wait a minute. You're that kid screaming in my house all the time.
So what was the hesitation about, what are your thoughts on heaven and hell?
I think there's like a peace of mind, or just like we don't know what heaven is, but I believe like if you're good, you will. What's the word?
Like there's a higher vibrational.
Like you get if you're nice, you get shock. No, not shock. Like,
Are you saying that, like,
karma?
people
Yeah,
can experience
sure.
hell on earth, you know what I mean, with their own tortures and their own, like, that's how I've always thought of it. Now I'm projecting my thoughts on, but
if you're upset with your life, or if you're angry, if you're a bad person, when you die, I feel like that
You
anger and hatred,
naturally
like,
gravitate towards that.
Yeah, but if
Some-
you're like, I lived a good life, like I was a nice person, you die peacefully, and
Yeah.
you like,
I understand that.
It's hard to put into words, but
No, it's
I
like-
think there is a nice, calming place.
Yeah, it's just like you're tuned into that frequency. You're working towards that. You're hoping when you pass, you head into a higher dimensional plane of whatever the next life is, instead of getting kind of trapped in the lower dimensional with all the other angry and
a
sad
lot of the
people.
and a lot of the near death experience the near death experience in the near death experience catalog, what they find is that, like, people who kind of hold on to either relationships or sort of their life back here on earth, they have sort of a negative transition into that, like whatever space they're moving into. It's a lot more kind of like it's not as easy as we're the ones that experience of just like a complete letting go. It's more blissful for them. They, I don't know what that is, but anyway.
Yeah.
Sounds
All right.
like
well,
DMT is what that sounds like.
Yeah, right.
Still need to hear that story. by the way.
Yeah. You still got a DMT
we're gonna take
story
a
for us.
quick break.
He looks ready to tell.
We come back.
Oh no.
We will have this week's story of high strangeness.
Cool. Can't wait. All right, awesome. Well, I think you'll like this one, Riley, especially because it's about a whole band that gets abducted.
Oh, sick.
And I think you'll like it, Mike, because it's got teenagers and probably doobie
I
smoking.
like stories of horny teenagers fighting a monster.
Yep, exactly.
A good lake monster, wood monster, swamp bog creature.
This is the abduction experience of Steve Boucher. Steve Boucher is from St. Catharines, Ontario. He's probably in his mid to late 60s now. But as he recalls his story, he was around 1984. He was reading the famous book "Missing Time" by Bud Hopkins.
Yep.
Bud Hopkins was an artist and a sculptor, but he was also kind of known as, I guess you could say, the grandfather of abductions, because he would interview abductees.
The Copley Woods.
Yeah, he was really one of the first people to
amass.
Yeah, he was really one of the first people to amass a collection of abductee experiences and write books on them. Anyway, so Steve was reading this book, Missing Time, and he recalls sort of getting these flashes of memory as he's reading this book, and at the end of the book, it says, if you feel that you've had any incidents, please write, and Bud Hopkins leaves his address or whatever. And anyway, so as he was reading this book, he gets this recall of flash memory of, and he would later go on to get regressed, which we'll go back more into later and to be able to come up to the details with, and I'll get more on that later. But he recalls the story of when he's around 4 or 5, and he's with his father in a car. And as they're driving in St. Catharines, Ontario, his father sees this sort of white light, saucer-shaped light, over the tree line, and so much so that it actually zooms ahead of them. And the next thing you know, it's on the middle of the road in front of them, and he recalls, and his father's like, the craft lands. And they both see these couple beings come out of the craft. And his father's kind of panicked, He says, and he tells his kid, he tells Steve,
"You're going to die."
He's like, "You're going to die.
We're both going to die now.
We're both going to die. Don't panic." No, he says, "Stay down, stay low," is what he tells him, And the two beings are standing there and they're just looking at them, And he said, as he recalled as a kid, he can't help but kind of pop over the car seat to get a good look. So his dad's like, "Stay down, stay low." He gets out of the car, the dad, and he walks over to the two beings, and then Steve says he remembers kind of being able to hear the telepathic messaging going on between his father and these two beings. One of the beings said to his father, "You seem concerned about the child," and he says, "Would you like one of my crew members to take him back to the car?" Because he basically he said that he, as a kid, he can get away with it. So he actually leaves the car too, and he goes out behind his father. He goes up behind his father, and then that's when the being was like, "You seem concerned about your child being here," and he's like, "Would you like our crew member to take him back?"
What
to
did
the
the
car?
beings look like? Were they classic alien grays?
Well, he has another experience that I'll get into.
Okay.
But yes, he describes them just so you can visualize them. But as the classic kind of smaller entities, larger heads, black almond-shaped oval eyes.
Okay.
And so one of the beings takes him back to the car, walks Steve back to the car, and the being sits in the driver's seat. And as his father and the other being are still talking,
"I am the daddy now."
Yeah. Well, yeah. And so the being's kind of Steve recalls him kind of trying to distract him. He's like, "So how does this machine work?" And he says, "Well, you do this." And
Meanwhile, they're just shoving a giant tube up his dad's butt.
Well, and he's he puts his hands on the steering wheel. What does this do? And he thinks he was distracting him because as he looks back up, his father is now gone.
Oh boy!
And the other being. And so
I love that he's just babysitting this kid.
Yeah, right. So now he felt that he was really being kind of babysat by this creature, and then so the being's like, then the father and the other being come back out of the craft, and the other the guy's like,
son, dad has a new secret lover,
and
we're not going to tell mom about.
And the being in the car was like, well, I have to go. And Steve said he was kind of like enjoying this company, as strange as it was, and he was like, oh, okay. He's like, and he could feel the leader beckon him. He's like, no, I have to go. And so they get back into this like white lighted spaceship, and they fly off, And the father comes back in the car, and he's kind of like in a daze, and kind of just like starts the car back up. And they're driving down the road, and he's watching this thing, and it sort of stops, but then it comes back around again and stops in the front of the road again.
I decided I want to hear more about season 2 of Thundercats.
You're going to love this. And the being comes back to the front window. The dad rolls down the window, and the being's like, you forgot these. And it was his glasses. And the being hands him his glasses, and he puts his glasses back on. And he gets back into the spaceship, and the spaceship flies back off, right?
Did he describe what the craft looked like? Was it just a white...
saucer-shaped craft with portholes, glowing white.
Okay.
And that was the end of that incident that he recalled. Now, fast forward about 10 years later, and he's in a band now, this guy, Steve, and he's playing at the Hotel Niagara on the lake. And
it's called the Outer Space Babysitter.
Yeah, and so as soon as he's done, his band get back in the van, they're putting their equipment away, and they see this hitchhiker with long hair and jeans, right? And they're like, oh, okay. And he's like, he asks for a ride, and they're like, yeah, sure. Which way are you guys going? And he's like, oh, we're going back to St. Ontario. And he's like, yeah, that's where I'm going. Can I get a ride? And they're like, yeah, sure, no problem.
It's just a gray alien in like a mullet wig.
Totally. So they let the dude in, right? And they're like, yeah, so sit back in there with the equipment, and it's 4 guys and a girl. He called them. I think he gave them pseudonyms just because he didn't want to reveal their identity. But he called them Tom, who was on guitar, Sam on drums up front. They were driving, and then himself, Steve, and Calvin, the bass player, and Anne Marie, who was a girl. She was a friend of the drummer.
I figured that out from the name.
And of course, this hitchhiker. And as they go to get back on the highway, it's closed. They see that there's a detour, so they decide to go around this back road, right? And so they do. They take an alternate route, and as they do, they sort of see this just like he experienced when he was younger. They see this kind of white light approach the middle of the road, and it stops on the middle of the road, and they're all kind of freaking out, and. The whole band, everybody in the van sees it, and sort of a kind of a panic ensues, and the drummer, I think, was like, everybody just shut up. Just shut the fuck up, everybody. Let's just stay still. Maybe they'll just go away and leave us alone, right?
Sounds like a drummer.
Totally. But that didn't happen, right? And then they see this sort of tractor beam. It sort of takes over the van, and as it starts moving. And then they see these creatures get out, right? And it's like, the van doesn't move yet, but they can't start it or they can't drive away.
We're caught in the tractor beam.
They feel like they're trapped in some sort of tractor beam lock. And then that's when these creatures exit the spaceship, right? And they're like, they're getting out, and they're like, what do they look like? They're just little guys.
Is the hitchhiker in on this stuff?
Yeah, the hitchhiker's in the back of the van.
No, but is he in on it?
Well, I'll get to that. So now he thinks there's like 3 or 4 of them, these 4 smaller creatures, small beings, they look humanoid, and they have these wraparound black eyes, almond, but they almost go to the side of the head. And he's in the back.
We found some cool glasses.
Yeah,
that's where I was going.
He's in the back of the van, right? And so he grabs this mic stand. He's ready to he's fucking ready to go toe-to-toe with these guys. And he sees one just kind of cross the back little porthole window of the van. And they're all freaking out, And so they're all just like, they can feel like the van rocking, and then the new guy, fucking hitchhiker, just opens up the van back door and opens it up, and then gets out. And they're like, "What the fuck are you doing, dude?" And then
This is my stop.
right? And then so the being gets into the van. He climbs up into the van. Now he said his head could clear the van. He was standing up.
Oh wow!
And he he didn't have to kneel down or anything. And Steve goes to sort of swing, and he's paralyzed. Everybody's paralyzed in the van, and he gets what he called mind speak. He gets this telepathic message from one of the beings, and they said, "I'm sorry, we had to temporarily paralyze you, but you were thinking violent thoughts. We just want to run some tests on 3 of you. The new guy, the bass player, and you." Right?
Wait.
Yeah.
They knew who played what? The aliens?
Well,
Like,
yeah,
oh, it's some of the bass players.
That's just the way Steve described it. It's like they wanted
Sick bass,
the
bro.
new guy, the bass player, and me, right?
That guitar player is an asshole.
And
Not interested.
And as the alien's walking back out, he says he got his foot caught in the snare drum stand. And it trips and it falls out of the van, right? And then the alien's like, "Whose is this?" and like they point to the drummer, and the alien's like, "Bring him to me." And so he's like, "Well, dude, you fucking sold me out, right?" So the drummer comes by and he thinks he's gonna be like, I don't know, vaporized or something. But then he's like, the alien's like, "Is it damaged?" And he's like, no. And so anyway, they line up the 4 of them, right? He's like, everybody out of the van. Now, Steve is like, I love this part. He's like, always kept my best. So if you're wondering what Steve plays, it's the recorder, right? And so he has a fucking bag of recorders, right?
No, really?
And he's like, and I never leave my bag of recorders, so I fucking grab it. And I'm
Like recorders from when we
Yeah.
were in first grade?
Exactly, those recorders. And so he grabbed his bag of recorders, right? And they line the 4 of them up, and as they're going to, because they basically they're going to go into the ship to run these tests, and the aliens tell them, they say, "Don't look left, don't look right, and whatever you do, don't touch the hole. Don't touch the hole," And of course, as they start moving, they're all kind of like frozen a little bit, and then they're moving down this tractor beam towards the, towards the spaceship. And Steve looks right, and then everybody stops. And then he looks forward again, and then he says they start moving again. He looks left, and then they stop. And then he looks forward, and then they start moving again. He's like, okay, that's fucking weird.
That's how it works.
But as he gets to the spaceship, he actually ends up, he touches it, of course, because, fucking Steve rocks.
Is this the
right?
guy who bought Skinwalker Ranch?
No. And
Told
so,
not to dig.
So he touches it. And later he said after these incidents, he developed this huge planter's wart on the 2 fingers where he touched this craft. But anyway, and then he remembers too that the drummer banged his head on the archway, like trying to get it. Oh, fuck, dude. Right. I love that. But so, right. So they get into they separate the group. They get into this craft and they're like, remove your clothing.
All right.
And no, hey, come on.
I'm talking to the alien.
Oh, right. And Steve's like, can I keep my underwear on? And he still has his bag of instruments, right? And they're sort of like, I guess. And so they bring out this. And then he says he sees this table, and they roll out this like kind of this bag of like surgical instruments, And Steve's thinking, which I love this too. He's like, I gotta fucking grab something off this ship, dude. I need fucking proof, right? I love that because so many times people are like, why doesn't anybody take anything, And so he sees this like kind of like fucking little cabinet, and it has this like knob, and he's like, I wonder if that fucking thing comes off, And he grabs it, he starts pulling, and it starts to turn, right? Like it's screwed. Mm-hmm. And so he fucking unscrews this knob, and he fucking grabs it, and he's like, he's in his underwear, so he's got nowhere to put it, And he's like, do I put it in my armpit or,
You know where you put that.
shove it up my ass or no? But as soon as he did that, he said one of the beings came up to him, and he looks at him, and he's like, did you take something? Like, what did you take? And he's like, fuck, busted, right? Because they could read his thoughts.
Yeah.
And they're like, you're not allowed to take anything. And then, he said, one being, he said, He's like, the one being kind of looked to the other one. What? I don't see the problem. Like, let him take. And the one's like, no, we cannot do that. You know.
I think these aliens are just Canadians.
I know, right? Right? Like, sorry, hey, but you can't take that, eh?
We just had those knobs put in.
So they run this kind of like, he called it like this like old, like kind of cell phone. It looked like a cell phone, but they ran it by his arm, and he could see all his muscular tissue and his veins, and his skeleton stuff. And this was 40 years ago. I don't know if you've seen recently, but there was just a release of this technology now. It's this vein scanner. Have you seen this?
No.
So it's almost exactly like the technology. It's
kind of like a X-ray wand.
Yes, you run it across your arm, and it reveals all the veins in your arm.
Whoa.
Now he said this was more elaborate. You could see the muscle tissue, the bone, and everything. But when he saw this in recent times, he was like, it really triggered back a lot of memories. He's like, oh wow. And then what else? Oh yeah, so then then they run it across his stomach, and it, this scanner, and it shoots up onto a screen back onto the spaceship. And as he does that,
and there's just a ham sandwich in there.
And as he does that, there's this black and white spiral, and they're just like just follow that, and then he blacks out. He wakes back up, and the beings are like, well, we'll take you back to your clothes now, and you can get dressed. And then at the end, so they're all standing there, and they're like, "Does any of you guys have any questions?"
Yeah.
Right?
A couple.
No, and he's like, a couple of the guys are like, "Where are you from?" And they're like, "Well, do you know your star systems?" And they're like, "No." And it's like, well, then it doesn't really matter, But they're like, "But this is where we're from. This star." And Steve was like, "All right, I got to think of fucking something good. I need a good question here." And Steve's like, "Do you have any bases here on Earth?" And they're like, "Yes, we have a base in Lake Ontario, underneath Lake Ontario."
Whoa.
He's like, "Okay, fucking cool." And then he's like, "What is the true religion on Earth?" And they answer, "There is no true religion on Earth." And they're like, "Okay, all right." So in the meanwhile, he recalls the drummer had refused to take his clothes off. So he was just kind of waited there, And... so as they were leaving, the leader stops Steve with his bag of recorders, and he says he says he felt this tremendous sense of love, and that he got this message: in the future, you'll be a tremendous help. And Steve's like, "Oh, interesting, okay." And then the being's like, "You wanted to show us something?" And then he's like, "Oh yeah, my recorder, right?" So he hands him his fucking recorder. He opens up his bag and he puts the recorder together, and he's like, "Yeah, here." And the alien, he grabs it, and he says, this is when he saw the alien's hand up close. And he said it was, the fingernails were kind of claw-like, and the skin was scaly and dry.
Whoa.
And so the alien grabs his recorder.
Just starts jamming some
and he
sweet...
puts it up to, he puts it up to his nose, right? And he blows out a couple, couple notes and shit and whatnot. And he's like, that's weird. But he recalls later reading this book by Dr. Leonard Stringfield, which he did a book on alien autopsy, where in his book he says that the mouth is only a pocket, that they don't have a full digestive system. So as he recalled later back, he's like, oh, maybe that makes sense,
Alien mouths are just pockets?
Yeah, according to this book by Leonard Stringfield. And remember how, because in a lot of the alien gray things, their mouths are just tiny little slits,
Weird.
And he so he says
maybe they don't use it to eat or speak anymore.
Steve's like, am I ever going to see you again? And they say, yeah, you'll see me. You'll see us again. And so they go back to the van, and they're all in and they all get back into their seat, and Steve recalls everybody being in sort of a suspended animation, just like just they can't move. And then it breaks. And the drummer's like, all right, we all need to make an agreement. We're not going to say shit, and we're not telling anybody. And Steve's like, fuck that. I'm going to tell this story. And they're like, they try to convince him otherwise. And anyway, and then the hitchhiker was gone. The hitchhiker was gone. He's like, that was strange, and And in his head, he started to hear another telepathic message. You're going to forget. You're going to forget this. You're going to forget this. And so he goes home and he writes it all down. Bullet point, draws a picture of it and puts it in his dresser drawer, and he went to bed. And he would wake up to go, and he grabbed it, and he said that fucking note that he took all those points on, it was gone.
No way.
Gone. Anyway, so he goes to call. He finds himself getting a phone call from none other than the author, Bud Hopkins. And Bud Hopkins says, I got your letter. I'd love to meet you. Why don't you fly out to New York? You could stay in my studio, and I'd love you to meet a couple of these doctors I know, and we'll work to investigate this story.
So wait, his letter was about his childhood incident?
Yeah, so
in between sending the letter to Bud Hopkins about his childhood thing, he had this whole new experience?
Okay, I kind of do the story out of segment, but yeah, what really happens is as he's reading Bud Hopkins' book, he gets these flashes of his abduction experience with his father.
Right.
Which he remembers, I think, pretty clearly. He writes to Bud, and he remembers pieces of this, I'll call it the van incident. And so he writes to Bud Hopkins. Bud Hopkins calls him on the phone, says, I've got your letter. I'd love for you to come out, and meet with a couple doctors. He does. So Bud Hopkins books 3 hypnosis sessions with him and a meeting with a behavioral therapist where she runs an IQ test, a Rorschach test, and a general knowledge test about the history of the United States, which he thought was funny because he's Canadian. He's like, although I did quite well. Anyway, so Bud Hopkins attended the third hypnotic regression session, and that's where a lot of the details sort of came out. Like, all the things just flooded back to him, all the memories of his bandmates and all the kind of creepy and details about the experience. Yeah, and then interestingly enough, his Bud Hopkins wanted to also speak with his father. And so he gets to actually do a regression session on his father, and who actually verifies a lot of the details of this story. He had always said, because he had talked to his father about it later in his life, and his father's like, I remember something like that, but it always felt like a dream,
Weird.
But during the regression session, he remembers a lot more clear details of it too. He tried to get in touch with his bandmates too to see if they'd be interested to tell their story. Nobody wanted to. Anne-Marie, who was with the drummer, ended up leaving him for the guitarist. Typical. But the guitarist ended up going under a session as well, and verifying a lot of the details of this story as well. And that's kind of the case of Steve Boucher and his Canadian rock band getting abducted.
Great story.
Yeah, it's a wild story, and it's multiple witnesses, and each one too. That's why you kind of like it, and the way the guy tells it too is just like this monotone Canadian, and like this just lays out the facts. This is how it happened, and of course he was professionally looked at to see if his story held weight, and it did. And I always thought that was pretty interesting.
I've never heard that story. That's a great one.
Yeah.
How long have you known about that one?
Not too recently. I just kind of discovered it last week as I was looking through some cases. It kind of like popped up synchronicitous. I was
cool.
Like,
that's my ultimate tour dream.
Yeah?
When we're going through like back roads in the middle of the night, I'm like, please, aliens.
Well,
Aliens.
Riley, that's not the only time it happened. Did you know the apparent Moody Blues?
Yeah, I've heard
was
this.
supposedly abducted, and they had a UFO sighting and has strong indications of an abduction.
What?
So much so that they wrote a song about it called The Slide Zone. Now, the Slide Zone...
I thought the Slide Zone was something else.
No. Now, according to Jim Deletoso of Phoenix, who would know, by John Lodge, based on the band's 1967 UFO sighting, which has strong indications of being an abduction. Let's see, here goes. The lyrics to Steppin' in a Slide Zone are, steppin' in a slide zone, I took a ride in a limousine. I took a road I'd never seen. I met a stranger, by the way. His coat was torn, but his eyes were clear. Standing in a slide zone. I could be stepping in a slide zone. He told me where a river flows. He showed me how the apple grows. He told me of a magic stream. His face was worn, but his eyes were clear. standing in a slide zone. I could be stepping in a slide zone. He went to find a shooting star. Around the bend, that's where they are. I went along just for the ride. Suddenly I began to glide, standing in a slide zone.
Also, this is their pitch for the slip and slide jingle.
And anyway, there's many more lyrics that
Wow.
I
That was
won't bother you
the
with,
first
but-
concert I ever went to was the Moody Blues.
Is that right?
Really?
Yeah, with my uncle, the dentist from before.
No
took me
fucking
to that
way.
show.
That's a trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently they were leaving a London show on their way to Carlisle, England or something like that. They all saw, very similar to Steve's case, this fucking light that comes on and, meets them on this road.
So the hitchhiker
That rules.
wasn't an alien? I thought that...
No, they never saw the hitchhiker. In fact, he sort of just disappeared.
Maybe
after...
the aliens took him back where he needed to go.
Yeah, maybe, but he always felt he was sort of a plant,
Yeah.
because as they all wanted to keep that van door shut, he.
Well, there are other stories of in the Zamfretti Italian, the guy who was the security guard.
Mm-hmm.
He in one of his encounters, he kind of met a mysterious. I mean, he was a much more outlandish figure. It was supposed to be like a dude in a checkered suit with an egg head.
Right.
But there are these instances of hitchhikers appearing almost as a portend before
that's what happened here.
the abduction takes place. So I don't know what the hell was that. What do you think,
Yeah, what do you
John?
make of all
What's your
this?
take on this?
Well,
Is this a fun story that this dude made up, or do you think this is possible? Or?
I think it's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. But him reading the book made him remember his father and him incident.
Yeah, so as he's
But did he also remember the van incident?
from what I understand from the story, he just started getting all these sort of flashes, is what he called them, of these abduction things.
But-
some from his father, which was more clued in, and then some also from the van.
I
you know
think
what I mean?
I think it's a situation because it was very similar with another UFO abductee, Debbie Jordan Cobble, who a very similar thing happened where it was one of these things where this book came out in I think mid to late 70s, early 80s, maybe it was a little earlier than that. But she recalls checking it out from the library, and as she's reading, just kind of be like, I'm into sci-fi and weird stuff, so I'm into the paranormal and UFOs. She realized that this book, Missing Time, started probably for one of the first times ever in a book, and certainly talked about this phenomena of missing hours associated with strange lights. And it, for her, as she was reading it, she also went, wait, this rings a bell. This happened to me and my sister when we were kids.
like being
And this
triggered.
happened one time when my sister dropped my mom off at church. She said she saw a weird light in the sky and then doesn't remember anything for the next 3 hours. It was suddenly dark out, and her mom, who'd been at choir practice or something, came out, and her sister's like, I don't remember what just happened. So I think it's that sort of thing where you're like, wait, this feels kind of, I think, and same with Debbie Jordan Cobble. She saw that address. She could write to Bud Hopkins, if you've had anything, let's talk about it. And she did the same thing. And then she started to remember under, regression therapy, stuff that happened to her and her sister when she were she was kids, and stuff that had happened pretty recently in her life as well. So it is,
Yeah.
I think it's that kind of a thing where you're like, oh wait, this is kind of itching at me in a weird way.
Well, and to add a little bit to this story too, and just to not leave it out because it is part of his experiences, is later in his life, after he was regressed and those experiences sort of stopped, he had these vivid. He kept asking the question, "Why me? Why me? Why'd this happen to me?" Not just once, but multiple times. He said he got this vivid dream of standing on this high, like the moon. He thinks it was the moon or something, with this being, this sort of angelic, almost look like the gray being, And he's like, okay, it's time to go down to Earth. And he's like, I don't want to go to Earth. I hear so many bad things happen there, And he's like, and the being was like, well, go talk to this one guy. He just got back, And I'm really kind of summing up, but he says, oh, okay. And so he does. And he's like, so I heard you just got back from Earth. And he's like, what's it like there? And the guy's like, well, it's, it's good and it's bad. And he's like, well, that doesn't answer my question. Let me put it like this. Would you go back? And the guy was like, actually, I have to go back because I didn't finish my mission. And then he's like, oh shit. he's like, that guy committed suicide. Fuck, you know?
Whoa.
Which is interesting. And then, so anyway, he's standing, goes back to the being, and then he's like, all right, well, I'm still pretty hesitant about, you know, going to the earth. And he's like, you know, I'll do it. He's like, would you guys just like come and visit me every now and then, just to make sure I'm okay? And he's like, yeah, we'll do that, no problem. But he's like, so that was all this vivid dream of like, as to why he was being visited is because he asked for that. You know what I mean? He asked these beings to check up on him.
Whoa.
And, you know, he also goes on to say that, you know, aliens and angels, same thing, you know, and that's not the first person that's said that in these experiences.
Yeah, not even on this show.
But anyway, so that's the experience of Steve Boucher.
Great story.
Love
Wow.
it.
So I thought of this while you were telling the story, like remembering things that you didn't know you had in your head.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of makes me think about deja vu a little. Like,
Yeah.
I have no idea what that is,
Yeah.
but that deja vu just proves to me that there is a plan, or there's something,
Right.
or parallel universe, or just something. It's like, oh, I've seen all this happen before.
Right.
And, yeah, I don't know if it connects, but
It's almost like
just-
reassuring in a way. It can creep you out, or you can be like, or maybe I've seen this before.
A preordained
Really,
plan that you've had a glimpse of, or
That's weird that you brought that up, because I was having really intense deja vu while he was telling that story.
No way.
Really?
Is that right?
Totally was. Did you do another episode about a band?
No.
Oh, man.
I don't think so,
Wow.
man.
Dude.
But your first
Weird.
concert was the Moody Blues.
Which is also crazy.
Did you hitchhike
That's
with them, by the
awesome.
way?
Who are you? Wait a minute. John, thank you so much for being on the
Thank you
show.
so much
It's
for
been a
having me.
pleasure.
Yeah, man, what a pleasure.
Where can people find you on social media or follow
John
you?
Milhiser on Graham and Twitter. And,
Great.
Yeah.
Anything you want to plug coming up? Any projects or anything?
Liza on Demand. Let's be on that.
Okay.
I don't know when that comes out, but
Okay.
yeah.
Great. Awesome.
And Greener Grass.
Greener Grass,
Jocelyn
I
Dawn's
know.
movie.
We're going to get them on the show sometime soon as well. That'll be awesome. All right, guys.
Cool.
Well, I think that concludes another episode of Bigfoot Collectors Club. Don't forget that we will be out at the Contact in the Desert convention, alien convention, June 1st. That's a Saturday afternoon. We'll be doing a live show, our very first live show. We have an awesome guest. It's going to be a nice surprise. We might announce it a little bit closer to the date. But yeah, we're going to get into it and all sorts of juicy topics.
Get your
surrounding
tickets
this
now.
stuff. Yeah.
Come down and see us.
Contactinthedesert.com, and please come see us. Come enjoy the show. We really want an audience to come to this thing, so please come.
Yeah.
All right, guys, thank you so much. Bryce, thank you. Riley, thank you. Until next week.
I wonder if we could take them out. I don't know what the rules are. Can we take them out with the Moody Blues song "Slide Zone"?
No, we definitely can't.
Okay,
do that.
Google
We
it.
don't have the rights.
Do it yourself.
Here's what you do. Yeah. Put that song on.
Okay, we'll
slowly
give you a
fade it out.
second. And okay, got it. Queued it up. You back? All right.
All right.
And
And we're
go
out.
get regret. God damn it.
Go get regressed.
There you go.
Bigfoot Collectors Club is produced by Riley Bray. Our theme song is Come Alone by Suneaters, courtesy of Lotuspool Records. If you like the show, please rate and review us on iTunes. It really helps get the podcast to more listeners. To support the show, check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Bigfoot Collectors Club and unlock multiple reward episodes every month.